The Kepler Nebula burned with the fury of 1,000 dying stars, its crimson gases illuminated by the flash of plasma cannons and the dying screams of warships. For 3 cycles, the war had raged across this stretch of space, turning what was once a peaceful trade route into a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered dreams. The Hegemony's black dreadnoughts hung like malevolent shadows against the stellar backdrop, their kilometer-long hulls bristling with weaponry that had reduced entire worlds to glass. Below them, the desperate remnants of the Coalition fleet fought with the courage of the doomed, their smaller vessels darting between the giants like silver minnows among sharks. Admiral Vextar of the Hegemony watched from his command throne as another Coalition cruiser exploded in a brilliant fireball, its death adding to the growing debris field that sparkled like deadly diamonds in the nebula's glow. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with panicked voices as holographic displays showed the carnage unfolding in real time. Ambassador Zephy's of the Altarian Collective wrung her 6-fingered hands in despair, her crystalline features reflecting the blue glow of tactical screens that painted an increasingly hopeless picture. "The Coalition cannot hold much longer," she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of millions who would die if the Hegemony broke through. Councillor Thane, his reptilian scales shifting from green to deep purple with stress, hissed through his fangs as he studied the tactical display. 3 more hours, perhaps 4. And the Hegemony will control the entire sector. The ancient ethereal, who presided over the council, remained silent, its gaseous form swirling with patterns that spoke of deep contemplation. Around the chamber, representatives of a dozen species watched helplessly as one of the galaxy's greatest naval disasters unfolded before their eyes. High above the battle, space itself began to writhe and twist as reality bent under forces that defied conventional physics. The first sign was a shimmer, like heat waves rising from sun-baked stone, followed by the distinctive blue-white flash that marked an FTL emergence. But this was no ordinary translation. From hyperspace, the very fabric of spacetime groaned and cracked as something massive forced its way through dimensions, leaving trails of exotic particles that made sensor readings scream warnings across every ship in the system. Then, as suddenly as it began, the distortion ceased, and where empty space had existed moments before, a fleet materialized that defied every convention of galactic warfare. The ships were not sleek and curved like Altarian vessels, nor angular and brutal like Hegemony dreadnoughts. They were something else entirely predatory, purposeful, and utterly alien to everything the galaxy thought it knew about human technology. The human fleet hung in perfect formation, a geometric precision that spoke of mathematics and death. At its heart, the command ship Indomitable stretched 3 kilometers from bow to stern, its dark hull absorbing light like a hungry void, while energy patterns crawled across its surface in mesmerizing displays of controlled power. Flanking it, destroyer squadrons arranged themselves in hunting formations that had been perfected in the fires of humanity's own civil wars. Each vessel a masterpiece of engineering that balanced speed, firepower, and armor in ways that made alien naval architects weep with envy. The smaller frigates scattered throughout the formation like deadly sparks, their missile ports sealed but ready, their crews prepared for the kind of violence that only humans seemed capable of delivering with such calculated precision. Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the Indomitable's bridge, his weathered face carved from granite as he surveyed the battlefield through tactical displays that revealed every enemy position, every weakness, every opportunity for devastation. Admiral Vextar's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species as his sensors registered the new arrivals. "Humans," he chittered to his bridge crew, his voice dripping with contempt that had been refined through centuries of considering other species inferior. "The galaxy's newest children come to play at war with their primitive chemical rockets and crude nuclear devices." His tactical officer, a scarred veteran of a dozen campaigns, allowed himself what might have been a smile as targeting solutions flooded their screens. "Shall we demonstrate proper warfare to these deathworlders, Admiral?" The word was spoken with mockery, though none of them truly understood what it meant to evolve on a world where everything, the weather, the geology, the very biology, was designed to kill. They were about to learn. Around them, the Hegemony fleet began to turn, massive ships pivoting with ponderous grace as they prepared to add humanity's finest to the growing collection of wreckage that surrounded them. The silence stretched across space like a held breath, broken only by the whisper of electromagnetic radiation and the distant rumble of dying stars. Then Admiral Kane spoke a single word into his comm system. "Execute." What followed redefined the very concept of naval warfare in ways that would be studied for millennia. The human fleet didn't charge in the glorious manner of heroes from ancient songs, nor did they retreat in the face of overwhelming odds, as logic might have suggested. Instead, they simply acted. Missile pods ejected from every human ship simultaneously. Thousands of projectiles that accelerated to significant fractions of light speed within seconds of launch. These weren't the crude fusion warheads that other species employed, but something far more elegant and terrible: antimatter, containment systems that would turn matter itself into the engine of destruction. The missiles streaked across the void in perfect synchronized patterns, their trajectories calculated by quantum computers that had mapped every variable in the battlespace down to the molecular level. The first impacts came 12 seconds later, and the universe screamed. Hegemony, point defense systems, designed to handle conventional threats, found themselves facing projectiles that moved too fast and hit too hard for their targeting solutions to compensate. Antimatter met matter in flashes of pure energy that briefly outshone local stars, each detonation releasing forces that turned kilometer-long dreadnoughts into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. Admiral Vexter had just enough time to register Shaka emotion, his species rarely experienced before his flagship simply ceased to exist, its atomic structure unbound by forces that transformed it into light and radiation. Across the Hegemony fleet, similar scenes played out as human precision met alien arrogance in the most one-sided engagement in galactic history. Ships that had dominated battlefields for centuries found themselves outmatched, not by superior numbers or firepower, but by a species that understood war in ways that peaceful civilizations could never comprehend. The surviving Hegemony vessels, less than a quarter of the original fleet, scattered in desperate flight patterns that spoke of panic rather than tactical withdrawal. But humanity had not finished its demonstration. The human destroyers moved through the debris field like sharks through chummed waters, their energy weapons carving through damaged hulls with surgical precision. They were not merely destroying ships, they were making a statement written in fire and vacuum that would echo across the galaxy for generations. Yet, even in their terrible efficiency, the humans showed restraint that confused and terrified their enemies in equal measure. Escape pods were allowed to flee, damaged vessels that surrendered were ignored rather than destroyed, and civilian transports found themselves under human protection rather than facing annihilation. This wasn't the behavior of conquerors or genocidal maniacs. This was something far more frightening: the actions of a species that could destroy utterly, but chose not to. In the Galactic Council chamber, absolute silence reigned as representatives from across the galaxy processed what their senses were telling them. Ambassador Zephys found her voice first, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. The entire Hegemony fleet. In under 4 minutes, Councillor Thane's scales had shifted to colors that had no names in his language, hues that appeared only when his species encountered something so far beyond their understanding that their brains struggled to process it. The ethereal's gaseous form had gone completely still, its usual swirling patterns frozen, as if even its alien consciousness had been stunned into immobility. Around the chamber, the representatives of dozens of species sat in shocked silence, watching tactical displays that showed human vessels moving through the battlefield with predatory grace, their formations never breaking, their purpose never wavering. They had just witnessed the birth of a new apex power, and the realization terrified them to their very cores. Admiral Kane studied the tactical display with satisfaction that went deeper than mere professional pride. The mission parameters had been achieved with efficiency that would have made his instructors at the War College proud. But more importantly, the message had been delivered with perfect clarity. Humanity was no longer a species that could be ignored, dismissed, or threatened without consequences that would reshape the political landscape of the galaxy. Casualties? He asked his operations officer, though he already knew the answer from the medical feeds streaming across his command displays. Minimal, sir. 3 crew members injured when the Relentless took a glancing blow from debris, all expected to make full recoveries. Kane nodded, then opened a channel to the Coalition survivors, who were still processing their sudden salvation. Coalition vessels. This is Admiral Kane of the Terran Navy. Medical ships are en route to assist with your wounded. The sector is secure. The simple words carried weight that would echo through diplomatic corridors and military academies for decades to come. The aftermath brought questions that no one seemed equipped to answer. In the ruins of what had once been the Hegemony's most powerful fleet, alien survivors huddled in escape pods and damaged hulls, their communications filled with whispers of a single word: Deathworlders. The term had been used mockingly for generations. A dismissive label applied to species that evolved on worlds too hostile for civilized life. Now it carried new meaning, spoken in tones of reverence and terror, by beings who had learned the hard way that evolution was not always kind, and that species forged in violence sometimes emerged with capabilities that peaceful civilizations could never match. The human fleet maintained its formation even in victory. Discipline and order maintained with machine-like precision that spoke of military traditions stretching back through millennia of warfare on a world that had tried its best to kill them. Word spread through hyperspace communication networks with the speed of light and the weight of revelation. The hegemony, unstoppable for 3 centuries, had been broken in minutes by a species that most galactic citizens remembered as primitive. Explorers barely capable of interstellar flight. Now those same humans patrolled the Kepler Nebula with casual authority, their ships moving through space with the confidence of apex predators, who knew that they stood alone at the top of the food chain. Intelligence services across the galaxy began frantic analyses of human military capabilities, trying to understand technologies that seemed to violate known physical laws and tactical doctrines that existed nowhere in their databases. The conclusions they reached would reshape military theory and diplomatic relations for generations to come. As reports filtered back to Earth, humanity found itself thrust into a role it had never sought but was uniquely qualified to fill. The species that had survived ice ages and supervolcanic eruptions, that had fought 2 world wars and still reached for the stars, now stood as the galaxy's newest superpower. The weight of that responsibility settled on shoulders that had borne similar burdens before, carried by a species that understood that with great power came the obligation to use it wisely. In the halls of the Terran Senate, debates raged about humanity's place in galactic affairs. But in the depths of space, human ships continued their patrols with quiet efficiency. Their presence a reminder that the galaxy had changed forever. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, their chambers filled with the buzz of frightened voices and the glow of tactical displays that still showed human vessels maintaining their positions with mathematical precision. The age of human isolation was over, ended not by treaties or trade agreements, but by the simple demonstration that when pushed to violence, humanity excelled in ways that peaceful species could never comprehend. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as the galaxy adjusted to its new reality. The children of Earth had come of age, and nothing would ever be the same again.